She assumed he was merely a wandering cowboy, but he possessed half the state and hadn't opened his heart in years. "You look like you could use a miracle, or maybe a mechanic." Clara flinched, nearly dropping her wrench as she peered through the haze. Her truck's hood was up, steam curling from the engine like a specter. She turned toward the voice and saw him, tall, dust-streaked, astride a black horse that seemed plucked from a classic western. He wore a weathered hat tilted low over his eyes and a faded denim shirt that blended with the rugged landscape behind him. Clara squared her shoulders, still gripping the wrench. "Depends on what you're offering," she said. The cowboy offered a faint smile. "Left my miracles at the last ghost town, but I'm handy with engines and horses if you've got any of those." Clara paused. The sun was sinking fast, her phone was dead, and she was still 10 miles from her ranch. Coyotes yipped in the distance. "Truck's overheated," she muttered. "Or maybe the alternator's gone. I'm no mechanic." "Mind if I check?" he asked, dismounting with deliberate care. She nodded, eyeing him cautiously as he approached. His movements were calm, assured. No haste, no bravado, just steady steps crunching on gravel. He set his saddlebag down, pulled out a rag, and leaned over the engine with the ease of someone who'd done it countless times. Clara folded her arms. "What's your name?" "James. Just James." He glanced up briefly. "That's what folks call me." She gave a curt nod, unsure if that was enough. He worked quietly for a few minutes, wiping grease from a hose and inspecting the fan belt. The sun dipped below the hills, casting long shadows across the earth. "You from around here?" she asked, breaking the silence. He shook his head. "Just passing through. From this state. Close enough to feel it, far enough to not belong." Clara didn't quite grasp his meaning, but something in his tone made her stop probing. After 20 minutes, he straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "She'll need a tow. Radiator's shot." "I figured," she sighed. "My ranch is 10 miles west. Got a trailer and another truck there. If you help me hitch it, I'll cook you dinner." James tipped his hat slightly. "Deal." It took an hour to rig the truck to his horse and load her gear into his saddlebag. She walked beside him for a while until he insisted she ride. Reluctantly, she climbed up behind him, awkward but thankful, trying not to lean too close as the night air grew chilly. When they reached her land, an old wooden sign greeted them, "Iron Creek Ranch, 1979. The porch lights glowed softly against the twilight. Horses in the pasture raised their heads but stayed calm. James led them to the barn and helped unhitch everything without a word. "You good with tools?" Clara asked as they unloaded. "Depends on the task. Got a broken gate and a leaking roof if you're looking for work." He glanced at her. "Just a few days. Then I'll move on." She nodded. "Just a few days." That night, Clara set a plate of stew and cornbread on the small kitchen table. James sat across from her, freshly showered but still in his worn clothes. He ate with quiet gratitude, never asking for more than she offered. She studied him over her glass. "You ever stay anywhere long?" He shook his head. "Not for years." "Running from something?" "Chasing peace," he said simply. The answer caught her off guard. The wind outside stirred, brushing the windows softly. They spoke little after that. She offered him the spare room in the old bunkhouse by the barn. He thanked her and stepped into the moonlight. Clara locked the door, her brow creased. There was something about him, calm yet distant, kind yet guarded. A drifter cowboy, she thought, one of the old kind. She shook her head, poured another glass of water, and turned off the lights. But just before dawn, a crash shattered the silence. Clara bolted upright, heart racing. Outside, the horses were shrieking. She grabbed the rifle by the door, yanked on her boots, and ran toward the barn. She was halfway there when she saw them, 3 shadowed figures moving fast, one already inside the barn, a door dangling off its hinges. Then came the sound of fists, grunts, a body slamming against a wall. She raised the rifle, hands shaking, but then saw James. He moved like a storm, seizing one intruder by the collar and pinning him against a post. The man crumpled. Another charged, but James dodged, landed a blow to his ribs, and swept his legs in a move too precise to be chance, too sharp to be barroom luck. The third man fled. By the time Clara reached the scene, James was securing the stall locks, soothing the horses. "You okay?" she gasped. "Better question for them," he said, nodding toward the two groaning men on the ground. She stared, stunned. "Who are you?" He met her gaze. "Just James." But Clara wasn't sure she believed that anymore. By mid-morning, James had repaired the barn door, reinforced two stalls, and fixed the feed shed's loose hinges. Clara watched from the porch, pencil forgotten in her hand, paperwork untouched. She'd seen men falter under a stubborn horse or fumble a simple gate repair, but James worked with a steady rhythm, hands precise, calloused but careful. He didn't hurry or boast, he just fixed. And that unnerved her more than the break-in. She waited until he drove the last nail before approaching. He wiped his brow, turning as if he sensed her. "Thanks," she said, "for last night." He nodded. "You get much trouble out here?" "Land like this draws eyes, folks who want what they didn't earn." James didn't answer, just walked to the trough and splashed water on his face. "You learn to throw someone like that in a bar fight?" she asked, arms crossed. He looked up, water dripping from his jaw. "Not quite. You move like someone trained." He said nothing. She stepped closer. "It's hard to trust someone who won't share a damn thing about themselves." He dried his face with a rag and met her eyes evenly. "You trusted me enough to let me stay. That was before you started breaking ribs in the dark like some ex-commando." He almost smiled. "I told you, just James. That doesn't cut it here. You're either running from something, hiding something, or both. Which is it?" James gazed across the pasture, horses grazing quietly, wind tugging the grass. He didn't answer immediately. "Sometimes people lose things," he said softly, "and they don't want to talk about it." Clara's jaw tightened, but a faint crack in his voice made her pause. She nodded. "You've earned a few more nights. That's all I'm saying." He gave a small nod. "That's all I need." Over the next few days, James settled into the ranch's rhythm. He was up before dawn, feeding horses, patching a sagging fence, even taming Clara's wildest mare, Storm, with a low whistle and steady hands. Clara kept trying to piece him together, asking casual questions. Where he grew up, why he came west, if he'd trained horses professionally. His answers were vague, carefully crafted, as if he were laying bricks between them even as they worked side by side. One evening, after a long day, they sat on the porch, watching the sky shift from amber to indigo. Clara spoke first. "My dad used to say land's only as good as the man who stays to work it." James nodded, eyes on the horizon. "You believe that?" she asked. "I believe land remembers the hands that shape it and the feet that leave it." She tilted her head. "And which are you?" He looked at her, eyes shadowed but honest. "I used to build. Then I ran, still figuring out which one wins." They fell silent. Then Clara asked, "You good with horses because you love them, or because they listen better than people?" He chuckled softly. "Bit of both." She smiled. "You ever think about staying somewhere?" His eyes lingered on the land. "Sometimes. You think about staying here?" He turned to her, slower this time. "Would it matter if I did?" Her chest tightened. "I don't let people in easy," she said quietly. "Me neither." Their eyes met, something unspoken passing between them, recognition, maybe even understanding. No vows, no grand gestures, just two guarded souls wondering if this time could be different. Then, In the distance, a truck's rumble broke the quiet. Clara stood, tension flooding back. That's Vance. James watched her face shift. Problem? She nodded grimly. Big one. The truck rolled up in a dust cloud, its engine growling like a threat. Clara stood rigid on the porch, arms crossed, jaw set in a way James hadn't seen. Vance stepped out, tall, tanned, in a tailored shirt that screamed city. His smile was wide, rehearsed. James disliked him instantly. Clara, Vance said, striding toward the porch like he belonged. Been a while. Heard your truck broke down. Thought I'd stop by, offer a hand. Her voice was cold. Too late. Someone already helped. Vance's eyes flicked to James, who leaned against the porch post, casual but alert. James didn't flinch. Vance's smile faltered. Friend of yours? James stayed silent. Clara stepped in. He's helping on the ranch. That's all you need to know. Vance chuckled, turning to her. That's so? Figured after everything, you'd be ready to talk business. My offer still stands. It never stood, Vance, she snapped. You just act like it did. He tilted his head, feigning hurt. Come on, Clara. You can't keep this place afloat forever. You're one step from foreclosure, and I've got the means to fix it. I'm not selling. He stepped closer, voice low. You sure? Next time, I might not ask. James straightened. You threatening her? Vance turned. Excuse me. James descended the steps, calm but deliberate. You show up uninvited, pushing. Sounds like a threat to me. Vance took a half step back, then caught himself. You don't know who you're talking to. James's smile didn't reach his eyes. No, but I know the type. Vance's eyes narrowed. This ain't your business, cowboy. James's voice hardened. It is now. Clara stepped between them. Enough. Both of you. Vance took a breath, regaining his swagger. You'll regret this, Clara. You always do. He turned, climbed into his truck, and sped off, kicking up gravel. James watched until the dust settled. You okay? He asked quietly. Clara nodded, fists still clenched. He won't stop. James's jaw tightened. Then neither will I. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She checked the locks twice, patrolled the fence line with a flashlight, and startled at every sound. James sat in the barn, sharpening a knife with slow, steady strokes, eyes on the door. Just past midnight, a metallic clang rang out. The horses panicked. Clara was already running as James sprang from the stall, moving with lethal precision. Two men in black hoodies were prying open the stall doors when he tackled one, slamming him to the ground. The second swung a crowbar. James ducked, grabbed the man's wrist, twisted until the weapon fell, and dropped him with two quick punches. Clara arrived, rifle in hand, panting. You good? James nodded, breathing hard but steady. They weren't pros, just hired hands. Vance? She spat. James checked the man's pockets, pulling out a folded note. No name, just a crude map of her ranch, one stall marked with a red X. Clara's blood ran cold. They were after the mare, she whispered. Sell her, ruin the ranch's name. James stood, eyes narrowing. He's not just scaring you. He's dismantling you, piece by piece. Clara felt something shift. I can't do this alone, she said. You're not, James replied. The next morning, Clara found him reinforcing the perimeter fence with new barbed wire. She brought him coffee, silent for a moment. You didn't hesitate last night, she said. He looked at her, hands still dirty. Didn't need to. You've done this before. His silence spoke volumes. Why hide it, she asked. Because the last time I fought for something, he said slowly, I lost more than I won. She swallowed. And this time, he looked at her, eyes softer, still figuring that out. She set the mug on the fence post. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. He nodded. So am I. But in the back of her mind, Clara knew Vance wasn't done, and James was starting to look less like a cowboy and more like a man trained for far worse. It began with a box, an old, dusty one tucked behind ropes and broken tack in the loft. Clara hadn't meant to find it. She was looking for blankets and nearly tripped over it. The box was heavy, with metal corners and a rusted latch. When she opened it, dust choked her lungs. Inside were papers, dozens of them, neatly folded, yellowed, tied with a leather strap. On top, an envelope bore the name T.J. Carver in elegant script. Clara froze. T.J. Carver wasn't a name she heard often, but she knew it. Years ago, it was everywhere. James T. Carver, the silent force behind the state's largest land and oil deals, a man who built an empire by 35 and then vanished after his fiancée died in a plane crash. Rumors swirled, grief, scandal, a staged death. Clara stared at the envelope, then untied the documents. Titles, deeds, trust papers, all signed James. Her heart pounded. She climbed down, hands trembling, and went to the house. On her old laptop, she searched the name. There he was, younger, clean-shaven, in suits worth more than her truck, but the eyes were the same. James. James T. Carver. The man who owned half the state. The man sleeping in her bunkhouse. The man who hadn't loved in years. She found him that evening in the pasture, checking the fence with a colt trailing behind him. He looked up, reading her face before she spoke. "You found it," he said quietly. Clara didn't answer, just stood there, papers in hand, betrayal in her voice. "You lied to me." James exhaled. "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you. You let me think you were a drifter, a cowboy with a quiet past. You let me trust you. I never asked you to," he said, not unkindly. "But you knew I did." He nodded. "Yes." Clara paced, voice shaking. "You're James Carver, the man who vanished after his empire fell." "It didn't fall," he said. "I walked away." "Why?" He paused. "Because I built something I thought would change the world, and when it broke, I had nothing left but silence." She didn't speak. The wind stirred the grass. James stepped closer. "I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to be someone else for a while. Someone people saw for a hammer and a horse, not money or failure." "And you let them," she said bitterly. "I let you." Clara looked at the trembling papers. "You said you were chasing peace, but you're still running, James. Even here." "I know," he said. "And I'm sorry." She looked up, tears stinging. "I don't care who you were. I cared who I thought you were." "I'm still him," he whispered. She shook her head. "I don't know who you are anymore." She turned and walked away, leaving him in the fading light, nothing in his hands but regret. The colt whinnied softly behind him. James didn't move. For the first time in years, he understood what it meant to be seen and what it cost to hide. Clara left before dawn. She didn't leave a note or look back. The box of papers sat on the kitchen table, a silent testament to everything she thought she knew and now questioned. She packed a duffel bag, took her spare truck, and drove to town, needing space, air, anything but James Carver. She hated that name. It meant every spark of trust, every moment of connection, was built on a half-truth. The man who fixed her fences and calmed her maras wasn't just James. He was a hidden tycoon, a man with power he'd concealed, letting her believe he had none. At the edge of town, she checked into a roadside inn, where the silence was heavier than the pasture. Later, passing the hardware store, she heard her name. "Clara, you seen the news?" An older rancher, Hawkins, maybe, held up a crumpled newspaper. "Vance Colton expands development. 2 more families pressured to sell." She snatched it. The headline was grim, the article worse. Vance, her ex, was buying land fast, forcing families out with legal battles or quiet exits. The final line twisted her gut. Colton Enterprises to break ground in 3 months on Iron Creek's southern edge. Her land. Her home. The pieces clicked. Vance's threats, the break-ins, the targeted attacks. He wasn't just after her. He was strangling the valley, one deed at a time. And she'd walked away from the one man who could stop him. That night, the wind battered her motel window. Clara sat at the desk, the newspaper beside her untouched dinner. Memories of James flooded her. His quiet strength, the scars on his knuckles, the sorrow in his eyes. He hadn't hidden to hurt her. He'd hidden to protect what was left of himself. She'd run not because he wasn't who he claimed, but because he'd become someone she could love, and that scared her. But love wasn't the issue now. Vance was winning, and Clara needed a fighter. At dawn, she drove back. The ranch was still, the gate open, the air thick with dust and horses. She found James in the barn, brushing a colt, sleeves rolled, as if nothing had broken. She watched him silently. He turned, their eyes meeting. No anger, no demands, just waiting. "I saw the news," she said. He nodded. "He's moving faster than we thought." "I know." She stepped closer. "I walked away. I know that too." Her throat tightened. "I didn't come back for apologies or explanations." He studied her. "Then why?" "Because I need you," she said. "Not just the man with a wrench and a quiet voice. I need James Carver, the man who built half the state, the man who can stop Vance before he destroys everything." His eyes softened. "Are you sure?" "I'm not sure of anything," she said, "except that you never stopped fighting, even when no one saw." He stepped forward. "And I never stopped wanting to protect this place. Or you." Clara blinked back tears. "So what now?" James picked up a folder from the bench, labeled Colton Enterprises, LLC. "We make a plan," he said, "and we make it loud." Together, they walked into the morning light. Vance had power, but they had purpose, and maybe that was enough. 3 days later, the town's old meeting hall was packed. James stood at the front, sleeves rolled, no tie, voice steady. Behind him, an easel displayed maps, deeds, and a web of connections, shell companies, land transfers, all pointing to Vance Colton. Clara stood beside him, watching the crowd, farmers, teachers, ranchers, some angry, some scared, all done with silence. "I haven't earned your trust," James said, "but you know Vance's offer isn't business, it's coercion. You felt it. I've seen what happens when men like him go unchecked, and I'm done standing by." He held up documents. "These are injunction filings. I'll cover the costs. You just need to stand with us." The room was quiet. An older woman raised her hand. "You really Carver?" James nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Why help us now?" He paused. "Because I didn't before, and I should have." A murmur spread. One by one, people nodded, then stood. By the hour's end, 25 signatures backed the paperwork, enough to halt Vance's project. But they knew he wouldn't go quietly. That night, James paced the barn, phone to his ear. "Yeah, the injunction hits tomorrow. Means Vance is out of moves unless he uses force." He hung up. Clara stood in the doorway. "You think he'll show?" James nodded. "He has to." At midnight, engines roared. Clara's stomach dropped. "They're here." James handed her a flashlight and walkie-talkie. "Go out the back. Call Sheriff Holt. Tell him what?" She didn't move. James exhaled. "I'm not leaving you." "I'm not asking," he said. They crept into the shadows. Headlights flared across the pasture. 3 trucks. Figures jumped out, flashlights sweeping. Vance's voice rang out, cold, cocky. "James, come out. This land's nothing without blood on it." James stepped forward, shotgun lowered but ready. "You made your move. Now back off." Vance snarled. "You think paperwork stops me?" "No," James said, "but witnesses will." Sirens wailed in the distance. Vance cursed. You called the cops? James's grip tightened. No. Clara did. Vance turned as she stepped out, rifle aimed. Back away, Vance. He lunged. A gunshot cracked. Vance fell to one knee, clutching his side. His men scattered. Clara ran to James, heart pounding. You okay? He nodded, a gash bleeding on his temple. Close enough. Sheriff's cruisers tore in, lights flashing. Vance was arrested, unregistered weapons, assault, trespassing. The deputies didn't need convincing. By sunrise, the legal fight was just beginning, but the worst was over. They'd won the first battle. James moved slower that week, his gash stitched, ribs bandaged. Clara noticed the pain wasn't just physical. It lingered in his long stares at the fence line, the quiet sighs he thought she missed. But he never complained, and she never left his side. They worked together, feeding horses, walking the pasture, tending the garden. Their silence was softer now, understood. One evening, as the sun painted the sky peach and rose, Clara found him by the corral, brushing Storm. You'll spoil her, she said, smiling. She deserves it, James said, stroking the mare. We all do sometimes. Clara sat beside him, hands folded. You ever think about what's next? He didn't answer right away. Every day. He looked at her, eyes steady. I thought I was made for building empires, deals, projects. But lately, I just want something lasting. Something quiet. Something true. Clara swallowed hard. You have. James reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn box. Not fancy, just simple, like him. Inside was a silver ring, delicate, hand-worked, with a faint engraving, her mother's handwriting, lifted from an old card. Come home when you're ready. Clara's breath caught. James didn't kneel or make a speech. He just looked at her, eyes raw and honest. I haven't loved in years, he said softly. Didn't think I could again. Not like this. Not where it mattered. Clara blinked back tears. I don't need a church, he said. I don't need a crowd. I just need you. And the sound of your boots on the porch every morning. She laughed through tears, nodding. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. It fit like it was meant to be. They sat as night fell, stars appearing one by one. No fanfare, just two people choosing each other after grief and guarded hearts. They'd come home. This time they'd stay. A year later, Iron Creek's hills were greener than they'd been in decades. Spring rain had drawn wildflowers from the dirt. Horses roamed, manes fluttering. Laughter echoed from the barn, children's voices, light and alive. The ranch wasn't just a home, it was a refuge. Clara stood on the porch, her infant daughter, Lila, asleep against her chest in a woven wrap. Lila had her father's steady brow, her mother's quiet fire. The baby stirred as Clara watched teenagers saddle horses under volunteers' guidance. Across the field, James walked beside a 10-year-old boy holding a mare's reins. He moved slower now, not from age, but purpose, every step deliberate. The boy laughed, and James ruffled his hair. This was what they'd built. After Vance's downfall and the court battles, the community united. The ranch became a nonprofit, offering equine therapy for veterans, at-risk youth, and families who'd lost too much. James never sought credit. He just wanted to give back. Clara walked down the steps, cradling Lila. James saw her and smiled, the quiet smile that still undid her. Morning, Mrs. Carver, he called. You're late for breakfast, Mr. Carver. He met her halfway, kissing her forehead, peeking at the sleeping baby. Out cold, like her dad after fence duty. He chuckled. Fair. They walked together, sunlight warming the earth. A sign creaked near the gate, sanded and repainted, mounted on her father's old post. The new name was carved deep, Carver's Haven, where we come back to life. James looked at it, exhaling slowly. Think your dad would have liked it? Clara nodded. He'd have liked you. James's eyes softened. Took me long enough to earn that. She took his hand. You earned it the moment you stayed. They stood, watching the wind sweep the hills, their daughter warm between them. The ranch buzzed with life. They'd lost much but built more, not with steel or oil, but with love, truth, and the quiet choice to keep choosing each other. As the sun rose over Carver's Haven, Clara looked at James and whispered, "Let's ride." He nodded. Together, with Lila safe against her chest, they saddled 2 horses and rode up the ridge trail to the hilltop where James once stood alone, thinking he'd never belong. But now he looked down, not as a drifter or a ghost, but as a husband, a father, a man who'd come back to life where he was meant to be. Sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't born from grand gestures or flawless starts, but from broken pieces rebuilt with steady hands and quiet hearts. James and Clara didn't just find each other. They found healing, purpose, and a home that can't be bought, only built. Because real love isn't about who you were. It's about who you choose to become together. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that even the loneliest heart can find its way home, please consider subscribing to Soul-Stirring Stories. We share heartfelt tales that remind us it's never too late to start again. Tap subscribe, turn on notifications, and join our community of story lovers who believe in second chances and soul-deep love. Thank you for watching, and remember, wherever you are, someone's waiting to ride home with you. Soul-Stirring Stories.